So this is going to be a very, very impromptu video talking about my wellness routine, self-care routine, depending on what the title of the video, but I want it to be surrounding how I manage my energy, stay focused, keep up with juggling with different parts of my career, work, side project, just overall my self-care routine. So wellness is not something that is very new. The whole point of this video is I just want to sit here and not gatekeep anything, because this is something that I do get asked quite a fair bit. So I started out my journey when I was young with a lot of health issues because I was sick quite a lot and I was on a lot of different antibiotics, corticosteroids for my eczema. So a lot of physical health issues that I believe, actually I know for a fact that it has shaped me the way that I am today. But I have reached a stage where I was very extreme, I was not extreme, and I think I'm very close to the middle ground. And so aside to just, health and all the different health issues that I had, I think ever since I started taking my fitness, my self-care routine, what are the things that I'm going to do to make myself very focused, very agile, very resilient in the mind, especially the mind work, that's when I see everything else accelerated. It's not just my physical body, but it's the internal side that typically reflects on the outside. And so I was focused a lot on the physical aspect. Many years ago, I did not know the power and the importance of setting the foundation right, which is what's in here. And so now let's begin. Okay, what are some things that I'm practicing, my holy grail, when it comes to my self-care routine? I would say that sleep is number one. I don't know about you, but I was once upon a time the person that is the night owl for sure. Back in college days, I was a fashion student, so you can imagine during your early 20s, after you graduate from high school, it's the moment where you start to have freedom, right? I moved out from my hometown and I was in a new environment and pretty new to the people that's around me, the friends that I'm mixing myself with, and sleep back then was just non-existent. I remember I would go to sleep at 3-4 a.m. when I can, or sometimes even like when I almost can feel like, the birds are chirping, but it's still like dark. That it's going to be 7 a.m. That's when I'm going to sleep. And then I will wake up at 5, 6:30, the sunset. That's when when everybody is done with working, that's when I wake up back then during my fashion student years. And my circadian rhythm was just messed up. But fast forward, in my 20s, when I started taking my work seriously, when I started my job in Singapore, and as my career progresses, I became more and more that type A personality, the person that is very ambitious, want to get a certain amount of salary, want to reach a certain title, So I was chasing that a lot, and my sleep was not as bad as before, but it was starting to take a toll on me where I didn't see the importance of having a set duration, like a minimum duration of sleep. So long story short, I now sleep religiously minimum 7 hours every day. If I can, I would try to hit 7 hours and 30 minutes. I don't know, but my body, I cannot sleep until 8 hours. Say you must get 8 hours. It just doesn't work for me. By by the 7th hour or the 7 hour and 30 minutes, typically I'm already awake, alert. And I noticed that because of this sleep hygiene, I have to be so disciplined in the night time to sleep at a very specific time and not expose myself to a lot of blue light, a lot of bright lighting. I am very sensitive to all this physical thing, and that's why I know that even like if I sleep with the phone next to my head, which I have done before, and this was a bad mistake. For people who wakes up groggy and then they feel like they have this brain fog, it's because of the waves and the Wi-Fi that is next to your head. I think it's called the EMF. So I turn off all electronics, I put it on airplane mode. When I get enough sleep, it's like setting the foundation to everything else that is going to happen in the rest of the day. So I am like a sleep snob. So what do I mean by that? I've probably done everything I could in terms of making sure that my sleep routine is taken care of, is at a certain standard. I mean, I'm not the tech geek or the person that is so obsessed to the point that they have those Eat Sleep mattress, or there's a brand that is, it's a high-tech bed that can actually regulate your temperature while you're sleeping and making sure that you sleep through, deep sleep through the night. I'm not there yet, but basically what I've done is making sure that my room is cold enough for me to get my body in a temperature to prepare myself for sleep. So there are some people who sleeps best in like, you know, your warm or room temperature, but it doesn't work for me. And most studies out there would say that your body temperature needs to drop before you can have proper sleep, before you put yourself into that zone or your body is preparing to sleep. And so I would say that sleep is paramount. I make sure the temperature is set properly in the room before I go to bed. I do not scroll on my phone right before I go to bed. And I also do not scroll my phone, or the first thing that I reach is not my phone when I wake up first thing in the morning. So people who are, you know, there's some people who just like, they're like scrolling on TikTok and Instagram in order for them to fall asleep. This light here, it's blue light. So blue light, anything that is of that very bright lighting, it can affect your circadian rhythm. It can affect the way your body is preparing for sleep. And so I stay away from light that is very bright. Like right now, it's already evening, but my bright light is on because of this video. And so typically, I would turn on warm lighting, you know, those yellowish, very dim lighting. I will try to dim the entire house, especially the room. And when I sleep, it's really just pitch black. You know, I will use the curtains and everything else would be just pitch black. Slightly cold temperature in the room, around like 20, 21. Sometimes I go to 18, but I don't take my advice because I love the cold. I think around 21, 22 should be like sufficient. It shouldn't be too warm because your body's temperature is supposed to drop again in order for it to prepare for sleep. Typically, I would do some breathing exercises or go for my red light therapy right before bed. Yeah, red light therapy doesn't interrupt you before you go to bed, right? It's actually helping you. So a lot of people think that using that bright red light actually interrupts your sleep. It's far from the truth. I will try to link some studies below or some videos below if you really want to find out about that. So those are some of the things that I do surrounding how to sleep well, how to sleep deep, and how to make sure that I get 7 hours of sleep minimally. Now let's go back to when I come home from work, I only have that few hours to like get to my shower, prepare my dinner, and then I do watch TV sometimes with my partner. It's just that I will set at a certain point, right, at a timing that around 8:45, I will have an alarm, a snooze telling me that it's time to prepare for sleep. So I know that at that point of time, around 8:45 onwards, I shouldn't get myself hyped up with anything that I'm watching. I realized that before setting this timer, giving myself 30 minutes before my actual bedtime, right? Suddenly, sometimes you watch TV and then you get too engrossed, right? And then suddenly you just like glance over your watch, you're like, oh shit, it's already 9:30 and it's already too late. So I will start rushing and then it becomes this anxiety-induced. So it's not relaxed at all. So that's why I like to give myself that little nudge, a little notification, right? That, hey, you know, you have this amount of time left before you go to sleep. Now, I know a lot of people must be wondering now, what such a regimented lifestyle, why do you have everything so structured? Again, like I said, without this foundation, without me being disciplined, this sacrifice of getting enough sleep, trust me, everything else the next day is not going to be ideal. For example, when I wake up in the morning, the energy, the mental clarity is very different when I get enough sleep and when I don't get enough sleep. And typically, when you don't get enough sleep, you're more irritable, you tend to have more anxiety, and whatever comes your way in the whole day, you are going to get triggered more. You will be more reactive rather than responsive, rather than take a pause. You'll be more still when you have more sleep. Again, you cannot trick your body clock or your system. These are all biological, and so I really take care of the sleep part to the point that sometimes I do argue with my partner at a certain duration, and then when I see that it's too late, I'm just going to be like, you know what, we've missed the window, so I'm just going to skip it. Yeah, I mean, there's some sacrifices to be made, but I would say that I am not like a soldier where all the way, every single day, I set that timer. So on Friday night or Saturday night, when I know that the next day, I don't really have to wake up at a certain timing, I can sleep in, because again, I work from Monday to Fridays. I have to wake up at a specific time, having 7 hours of sleep, waking up at a specific time to do my morning routine before my day starts. And so everything is already engineered or systemized in that way. If I break one of the flow, everything else would fall apart. And so I wouldn't say that I follow everything to the T, but I would say 80% of the time or 90% of the time I do follow it through, and I've been feeling great. I've been getting progress. I know that there are certain things at work or in life that you cannot control, and it's all about emotional regulation. That's why I think people who don't take their sleep seriously and take it for granted, right? And then they start complaining to other people or beat themselves up for why they're feeling so crappy, right? It's really something really, really dumb. It's look within yourself, look at yourself and ask, what is it that I am over enjoying or messing up that I need to do? So I know for myself, it's always been sleep. I know the difference between having enough sleep and not having enough sleep, and because of that awareness, I decided that I'm not going to deal with that. That's why I created this self-care routine, protecting my sleep. Again, sleep is everything. Now, let's talk about what I do then in the morning. So when I wake up in the morning, the first thing that I do is, of course, prayers. I have grown up in a family where it's always been quite spiritual. Probably for me, only at a later stage that I realized that spirituality is something very important. And I've always felt that connection in some sense, that there is something greater out there. No matter what religion you are, I'm not here to preach about what religion you should be in, or if you should really consider one. But my whole point is, your spiritual energy is extremely important. So your purpose in life, knowing why you are doing the things that you're doing, why you are suffering, what is the greater good, and your values, and having a North Star. I think this kind of principles in life that is helping you to do good, to be good, right, is obviously very important. It's just that some people take it for granted just because, the media made it look like religion is a thing that is not as what most people will perceive it to be. I think religion is just getting a bad rep based on what people are seeing in the media. But for me, it's the closeness to God, knowing that God exists and knowing that there's a higher power out there. It changed everything for me mentally, and it's reflected physically in a sense where my health is, I wouldn't say that my health is perfect, but I would say that physically, back then, because I was taking care of only my physical aspect, I did not realize that everything comes from the inside, right? The inner work. As I started doing a lot of inner work, that's when I started realizing that the spiritual side is very much something that no one should neglect. The moment you connect with your spiritual side, you know that you're not just a human being, but we are a spiritual being. There is so much more to life. You will start becoming more optimistic. You will start having faith. Faith is extremely important. Now, it's not just about being so optimistic to the point that you are not realistic. There is a fine balance, but it's the teachings itself in the spiritual world that makes you feel like there is something greater outside of whatever that's happening to you, right? That you have this faith that this is the path, this is the journey, and I'm going to stick to it because I trust in what life has to give me. And so I think it's this whole mentality that is very, very important. So after prayers, I also spend about 10 minutes of my time doing meditation. It could be breath work, it could be affirmations. It's just a mix of things, and I use Insight Timer for many years now. So I switch things up. Sometimes I join certain challenges that they have there. It's just very short, 7 days challenge. Sometimes it's like 14 days, 30 days. I learn a lot about morning rituals, breath work, box breathing, and it's regulated my physical sense, my emotional sense so much that I think I cannot do without it. It's just integrated part of my life now. But then when you understand the science and how your body works, you will be surprised that this is not woo-woo at all. It is absolutely the most realistic, practical sense that when you are anxious, you actually breathe abnormally, or sometimes you don't even breathe. It is through breathing that you calm yourself, that you find stillness, and that's when your mind doesn't get cluttered or doesn't get bombarded with things that it shouldn't be there. So some of these very practical mindfulness techniques, I would say if you have never explored it, I highly suggest that you explore at least breath work. Affirmation is also something that I find very, very powerful. The things that you say, what you say, it's a spell, right? It's whatever you say, it will go into your subconscious mind without you realizing. Your mind doesn't know the difference. So I'm very careful now with things that I say on a daily basis. I try to stay away from negative thoughts because negative thoughts leads to negative words. And so I'm very careful about my thoughts, but at the same time, I of course embrace, even if it's not entirely positive the whole time. I find a balance because I know the concept of yin and yang. It has to be there. The bad has to be there so you remember the good. The good is there so that you remember there is the bad. So you cannot just focus on either one side on its own. It's what makes us whole. I think having that awareness, understanding my personality and my psyche, how I approach the world, getting feedback from people, talking to people that I care about, being open-minded, staying curious, and not being so fixated. I think this has all helped me really drastically when it comes to what I do for my self-care. I can only share 2 at least each. Let me know if you guys are interested in knowing more about my self-care routine. There is actually quite a few more. So I will end this video right here and maybe come up with a part 2. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.